Dr. Nathan Farrell is the editor of the forthcoming book, The Political Economy of Celebrity Activism, which I think is a very good place to start our little panel discussion. So Nathan, if I could ask you just to give us a little bit of a rundown about the inspiration behind the book and some of the themes you're dealing with.
Thank you, and thank you for that introduction. The book does exactly what the title says, really. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but you probably judge that one by its cover. It has a number of different contributions, and I'm very privileged to say that some of the organisers of this conference are among those contributors, as is Susan Hopkins, who we just saw on the video, who's publishing a very interesting and timely work on Bring Back Our Girls campaign in the volume. It looks at celebrity activism, and it poses questions about the relationships between the social and political capital that celebrities enjoy and the kind of economic capital that celebrities create and the tensions between those. And it thinks about the various chapters think about the type of agency that celebrity activists enjoy and how they deploy that agency within a kind of wider political and economic framework, and the potential for tensions between those two, and the potential to identify certain limitations to celebrity activism.
Great, and I think Jackie's actually one of your contributors.
She is.
I am. Jackie, do you want to talk a little bit about your chapter?
So my chapter focuses on a case study on Leonardo DiCaprio, and I look at a particular YouTube video where essentially he was at a march talking about environmentalism, and he was stopped by a journo, asked some questions, and at one point the journo asks him, he flies on private jets, he has multiple houses, he does all these things that go against his environmental image, and basically challenging the authenticity, and he didn't respond. Instead, a publicist jumped in front and said, "Oh, sorry, we need to get the march going." And it's quite hilarious to watch, so I encourage you all to look it up. But it was an interesting discussion to kind of look at the authenticity within his brand, because I think along with Angelina Jolie and George Clooney, Leonardo DiCaprio is very much up there as being someone that we recognise for a particular area of activism that he looks at, and so I thought it was quite interesting to look at that sort of authenticity.
Yeah, so obviously the different notions of authenticity, especially when it comes to celebrity activism, relates to the individual, their background, what they represent, and also their relationship to whatever it is that they are being an activist for. So I suppose I just want to maybe just stick with you for a minute, Jackie, and just talk a little bit more about your presentation from yesterday where you're looking at Paul Newman and how his posthumous image has now been taken over by different interests. So do you think that, quite different interest, so do you think that's going to, in the long term, impact on the authenticity of his ongoing image?
So looking at Newman's own brand, I think he did an amazing job of establishing the authenticity by being the person that actually created the original dressing and then created various other recipes. So I think he did a great job of establishing it, and obviously it lasted, he was in the 80s and then up until his death in 2008. And so it's now continued on post-death. But as I mentioned in my presentation, Boris has taken over that brand, and there are a lot of challenges in terms of whether or not he's actually fulfilling what Newman would have wanted. And so I think it can be a threat. So if if the brand overall takes a direction where if they get into any strife of not actually giving it to charities or giving it to the wrong sort of charities or doing something dodgy in any way, I think that will impact on the overall brand and the selling of that. And as a result, could impact on Paul Newman's legacy to some extent. I think people still remember him as being a good guy and a kind, caring, philanthropic actor. But I think that there can be a challenge when a brand is then reliant on any manager of any sort. I think, something I mentioned in my presentation as well was James Dean and Marilyn Monroe, who are protected by CMG Worldwide, which is an organisation that focuses on that particular job. But you'll notice that their brands are all over all sorts of products and merchandise out there, so they're capitalising on it very much. But they still sort of protect it to some extent. It's something that, because they own the copyright of the images, they can kind of decide where it should go or shouldn't go. We've seen plenty of campaigns where they either use CGI to recreate them, or they've done all sorts of things. And I think that can still impact on their brands. At the previous conference in Amsterdam for Celebrity Studies, I talked about Monroe's endorsement of Chanel, and that's a posthumous endorsement. And it's something that's quite interesting because, you know, she's not here now to say, no, I don't want to endorse Chanel, or, you know, she was quoted as saying she wore Chanel to bed and nothing else, which was great, but that was one quote. We don't know if that's something she believed throughout her whole life, that she loved Chanel. It might have just been that was a fad at that time in her life. I mean, I'm sure we've all purchased certain products at some time in our life that we no longer want to use, and, you know, so we can't really you know, make an icon stick to one particular brand forever, but that's sort of what happens. I kind of got on a tangent, sorry.
Tangents are welcome. Tangents open up other avenues for conversation. So obviously you're talking about sort of posthumous brands and situations where the celebrity can no longer do anything to change their image or how people perceive them and how authentic they are. Sally, I'd like to ask you about living celebrities, and because I'm really fascinated by the idea that you're talking about in your presentation about cause experts, and in the context of how you're describing it, it seems to be a very rare status or a very rare level that a celebrity could get to. You have to be an Angelina or a George to be a cause expert. So do you think this is something that is going to be very specific to certain celebrities who have accumulated a certain level of attention, a certain level of cultural economy or cultural power before they can actually get to that, or is this something that may be more attainable to other celebrities?
I certainly think it's attainable to other celebrities, but I do think it will remain more of an exclusive clique than perhaps just celebrity. I mean, we seem to throw the word celebrity around quite freely now. You know, there's reality TV celebrities and micro celebrities, and everyone's a celebrity. You know, it kind of devalues actually what a celebrity is or a star is or what fame is. So perhaps that's why they are sort of seen as more significant, because we have kind of debased the word perhaps through overuse. And certainly, you know, Marilyn Monroe and you know, Audrey Hepburn and Paul Newman, they're in a different league of posthumous celebrities too. You know, plenty of celebrities die and kind of, you know, their celebrity dies with them. So I do think we've always had tiers, perhaps, or rankings, you know, and humans are quite good at wanting to rank things, and, you know, it's kind of human nature. So I do think that, you know, Angelina Jolie and George Clooney are in a different level in terms of their engagement with their celebrity activism. But that's taken years and years to attain, and as we sort of discussed in various panels today, the authenticity comes from the longevity. So 1 or 2 years, or, you know, whatever it might be, isn't seen as, you know, perhaps an established commitment to a cause. I think the other thing that differentiates them from numerous celebrities is their single cause. They're not jumping on the bandwagon of lots and lots of different causes, or even related causes. They're very much single issue, and I think that that's actually what gives them their authenticity.
Yeah, Nathan, is that something you found in your sort of work as well? This longevity is where authenticity really is.
I think so. Yeah, it's also, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. I think there might be also environmental factors that are at play as well, because celebrities who fit a certain profile within the kind of media environment are allowed to continue, so they will evolve into these kind of super celebrities. The ones who don't go for single causes or want to solve all the world's problems, they're kind of weeded out, so they never get to evolve to the status of becoming these kind of super celebrity activists like Angelina Jolie. So there's environmental factors, or the kind of wider media ecology is at play as well. So there's this kind of a structure and agency element to that, potentially speculating. I think longevity is something that's establishes or helps to establish kind of authenticity on the part of celebrity activists, and also if they are single cause, that cuts across the political spectrum. So, you know, Bono had a quite fruitful relationship with the Conservative government, with the new Labour government in the UK, with Democrat and Republican in America, and because of that, they can predict his behaviour. They know he's not going to go off on a tangent and start protesting about foreign policy or something. He's just going to stick to politics. So he's a predictable agent, so they're more likely to work with him as well, and that allows him to have a longer career in activism, which allows him to appear, and I think appear is the key word, as a more kind of credible, authentic voice.
I think on top of that, it gives them depth. So if they focus, it actually allows them, it's like doing PhD thesis, narrow and deep. And that's where their authenticity comes from. It's from that level of expertise because they're only focusing on one thing rather than being a generalist. And I think it comes from that. I also think part of what you were saying is it comes from where the audience is sitting as well with authenticity. So for my daughter who's 15, Angelina Jolie has always been interested in refugees. She never went through the phase of Angelina wearing the blood vials and things like that. So for her, it's totally authentic because of where she's sitting. Whereas I think for an older generation, perhaps it's seen as, less authentic because they have that longer, relationship, with Angelina Jolie. So I think it depends where you're sitting. And so for dead celebrities who still maintain their celebrity, part of that is that some, the new generations will only know them posthumously. And so will only identify with them that way, and so their authenticity is sort of perpetuating.
Yeah, that's actually really true because we talked about when I presented my Monroe paper that she's remembered as being a sex symbol, but there's actually so much more to her, and she went through so much in her younger life, and then obviously with her death as well being so mysterious. But people kind of just capture a memory of her, and that's what lasts because so many people are coming around now learning about her but don't actually know the full thing. Another point that you made, which I thought was interesting, is Angelina Jolie's 2 parts to her brand, which is something that I've written a little bit about, which is in terms of her rebranding is what I refer to as being, whereas Leonardo DiCaprio never had to have a rebrand even though he was a child star, and I think he's one of the very rare child stars that actually was able to transition without having to shave his head or do something weird. It just kind of gradually grew, and I think in terms of his environmentalism, I think it was 1998 from memory, that he officially created his foundation. So that's a pretty long time to have that one foundation, that one goal, and especially for someone that started out quite young compared to some others.
Your origins are actually quite, especially with Leonardo DiCaprio, because he was a child star. And he never went through the sort of wild child years, so perhaps that had something to do with the fact that he
well, is he still going through that stage? I don't know, he's still on boats with models, and that's the other part to his brand, which
that's actually the interesting sort of dynamic there. Is almost there's a tension there because he's appearing in magazines with these young, increasingly younger models, but they're riding bicycles. So it seems to be a very strange sort of tension between those two sorts of Playboy type images, which you wouldn't necessarily associate with an environmentalist activist.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing that yes, sometimes they are on bicycles, which adds to his eco image, but sometimes they're on these yachts, which obviously not so environmental. And so this is where that challenge to his authenticity comes from. But I also find that anytime he's presenting about environmental things or anything that's a serious like Oscar event or whatever it might be, he's always very, suited up, slicked back hair, that kind of thing. When you see him with the models on the beach or on the boat, it's shorts, a little bit more rugged, it's a very interesting contrast to his brand. And so a bit like the Beyonce discussion where they really pull themselves together for the media and have this representation of themselves, which I just think is really fascinating, that it's very controlled.
But isn't that like anyone? Like I'm sitting here and I'm kind of dressed up.
Yeah.
It's what David was talking about yesterday. But if I was at home having a chat with you about this, I would be in my tracky pants.
Yeah.
So everybody has a different public persona.
Yeah.
And if you are going to an event, you do make that effort. If you are hanging out with your girlfriend, you don't need to. Yeah. Well, presumably you don't need to. So sometimes I think it's just them being human.
True.
And perhaps we tend to read more into it than we need to.
Yeah, that's a good point.